Pleasant good morning to everyone, and welcome once again to another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Today's guest menu looks like this. He's a Deputy Athletic Director and Chief Operating Officer at Southern University, Dr. Travian Scott. He'll join me in hour number one. Got him scheduled about 10:35-ish. He'll join me talking Southern University athletics. Looking forward to talking with Dr. Scott. It'll be the first time that I've had him on the Carlos Brown Show. So he's looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Great information, I'm sure. Following Dr. Scott will be Coach Van Pettaway. He'll join me at 11 o'clock, hour number two. And I definitely want to talk to him, get his perspective on The Last Dance, the documentary that previewed last week on ESPN, the championship, the last season of the Chicago Bulls. There was a lot of information coming out of that show last week, and the conversation took off afterwards. It's interesting. This happened many years ago, but it brings up maybe a perspective that you didn't think about before, or maybe you didn't notice. So I'll get Coach Pettaway's perspective on that, and also one of my trending stories that I'm going to talk about in a second. But Coach Van Pettaway joins me at 11 o'clock, or maybe a minute or two after. And then following Coach Van Pettaway, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network will join me as well. So as always, you'll have an opportunity to go on the Carlos Brown Show Facebook page, Messenger. A lot of you like to send comments, questions via that way, and appreciate it as always. Here's what's trending on the Carlos Brown Show. Alcorn State names Landon Bussey the new head men's basketball coach at Alcorn State University. And we're going to get more into that. But previous years, he's been assistant basketball coach at the Prairie View A&M Panthers. So congratulations to Coach Bussey, Alcorn State, the new head men's basketball coach at Alcorn State. Alcorn again in the news. They named Quinn Gray their quarterback coach. Quinn Gray, of course, quarterback at FAMU many years ago. Well, maybe not many years ago, but years ago. He's a new quarterback coach at Alcorn State. University of Arkansas Pine Bluff names Charles Doc Gamble. You got to love that name, Doc. Charles Doc Gamble is now officially the head football coach at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. And then I thought I was through. Then I remembered. There's one more bit of a piece of news there. Alabama State's Dr. Donald A. Ely gets a one-year extension loaded with incentives and a base salary of $185,000. Now, if he hits those incentives this year, now, wait a minute, this year, I'm still saying that there won't be a football season collegiate. That's just me. But a one-year extension, incentives, interesting. You got to get your thoughts on that. Do you think he probably should have gotten maybe a 2-year? But that's what's trending on the Carlos Brown Show. Let me say good morning to Dr. Brother Michael Prince. Brother Prince, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, my brother. We used to sing in elementary, good morning to you, good morning to you, good morning.
A few short years ago, correct?
Morning. A very few short years ago. Very few.
Yeah, that sounds the theme today. A few short years ago.
Yes, sir.
That just sounds so much better.
Huh? A few winters past.
Yeah, I like that one as well. But You're doing okay on
Man,
another day on God's green earth?
another day on God's green earth. Celebrated my father's birthday on yesterday. He's no longer with us, but he would have been 81 years old. Had a time to reflect, not a moment of sadness, but just pure joy, satisfaction, thankful. There are many people, Brother Carlos, who grew up not knowing who their father was, for whatever the circumstances were. But I was fortunate enough to have him in my life, and I reflected, had a great day, and just spent time reminiscing and enjoying family and life, man.
Man, that's outstanding. And 81, huh?
Yes,
Boy,
sir.
now that just reminds me. I lost my father. It's coming up on a year, and then Monday is, it's my mother's birthday. Yeah, and I lost her in 2009, right by her side.
Yeah, I know, and it's tough, especially in the beginning. But as the old saying go, keep waking up. You never forget them. The hurt turns into joy, and the difference between being happy and being joy is something that can't be removed, man. Cannot be removed. It's anchored in. So
well said. Well said. Well, I also have some basketball recruiting. I'm gonna get to that before our first guest appears, Dr. Travian Scott, Deputy Athletic Director and Chief Operating Officer. Boy, he wears many hats. Goodness, on scheduling as well. He's over that, compliance, APR, all of that. Talented young man.
Yeah, so wearing many hats, and at such a time as Corona hitting now, for those who had to juggle and wear these multiple hats, it's paying off dividends now. The FBS are the ones that are really in a disarray, not only financially, but as far as assigning workloads, because they had many people, and all they had to do was one or two assignments, and that's all they had to focus on. But now with the trim backs and the trimming of the fat, they're finding themselves in some strange waters now.
Yeah. But no stranger to the conference, Alcorn State. I tell you what, on paper, you've got to say it's a outstanding relationship that they're going to have now with Coach Bussey. I mean, just kind of looking over, and I'm sure you know him very well. His time at Prairie View A&M. Prior to Prairie View A&M, Coach spent 4 seasons at his alma mater. What you say, Xavier University of Louisiana? See, Coach, Louisiana, whether you're a native or if you work or coach there, it's just outstanding. It puts you on the good foot.
You find a way to work it in, don't you? I can't blame you. You be Louisiana proud, you old rascal.
Well, that's true. And also, a 2-year letterman as a forward at Xavier University of Louisiana, graduating with a bachelor's degree in psychology in 2010. He later earned a master's degree in educational leadership in 2014. He's a graduate of Woodlawn High School, and talking to you before the show, is that what, Baltimore?
Baltimore, Maryland, yes, sir.
And went on to play 2 seasons for Livingstone College of the CIAA before transferring to Xavier. On the staff of Prairie View A&M, back-to-back basketball champions in the conference. So on paper, it is a good hire. Here's what Director of Athletics Derek Horn had to say. Coach Bussey's drive and commitment to excellence is going to be key in taking our program back to the success that we've had in the past years. He has experienced success at Prairie View, being back-to-back regular season champions and also throwing the tournament championship, and also in his recruiting efforts. We're confident that Coach Bussey will take us back to our winning ways. And that's the key, because if you look at Alcorn State basketball tradition in that program with Coach Whitney, they've had success. And,
no doubt.
You just want to get the program back to those winning ways. Now they've got to hire a women's basketball coach But once again, on paper, I say it's a good hire.
Well,
But time will tell as far as wins and graduation rate and where the program will be. We'll have a good indication in 3 or 4 years.
absolutely. And what I was going to also put a note in, a lot of people might not even be aware, he was also assistant coach with the women's program at Prairie View prior to transitioning over to the men. So he's had success on both sides, on the men and women's side. Very integral piece of the Byron Smith system. He's going to be sorely missed. It's one of those double-edged swords. You hate to see him go, but you're happy to see him go. And speaking with him briefly, we're going to have him on live tomorrow night on the Mike Prince Show. And we're going to have he and Coach Byron Smith on. And this is the first branch, if you would, to be extended from Byron Smith's coaching tree. So it's exciting on both ends of the spectrum. And I kind of nudged him on his way out, say, hey, you're only allowed to lose twice a year. And I don't have to tell you who that is against, but we wish you success against everybody else.
Well, I could understand that, and those comments I would expect. Yeah, I would feel the same.
Yes, sir.
the same way.
Just to set the record straight.
Yeah, I understand. So congratulations to Alcorn State on their hire. Then they're busy. Coach McNair names Quinn Gray, the quarterback coach. Of course, Pat White left the Alcorn State program to go to South Florida. So I know Coach Gray, not personally, but getting a chance to see him against Southern University and coming into Baton Rouge and typical quarterback for FAMU, can throw it all over the place. And that Gulf Coast offense, yeah, they believe in putting points on you, and they believe in at that time, and probably they feel the same way now. Beat or kill a gnat with a maul hammer, and that's what you saw. Some great games I got a chance to witness once in Tallahassee and in Baton Rouge. So Quinn Gray, the quarterback coach for Coach McNair and Alcorn State.
Yes, sir. That's going to be an exciting addition, especially with all the pieces that Alcorn are going to have to put together, losing 26 seniors. So I'm pretty sure your buddy Tall Men Radio is excited to start digging into that.
Yeah. And speaking of messages, well, I've got one right off the bat. And I think I know who it is. Carlos, if there isn't going to be a season this year, then Coach Hill, in effect, got a 2-year deal.
That was that was going to be my question. If there is no football, does this year roll over to the next year? Because, you signed a 1-year deal.
We can speculate on that.
Well, yeah, and I was thinking the very same thing. Kudos to whoever sent that question in, because I was about to ask you that with my next opportunity. In Hill's case,
I think it rolls over.
It's got to roll over. You would think it's got to, because
now remember, I'm going to be facetious here. We can't put an asterisk by that, so I'm gonna comment on it, and I'm gonna say it. I got to say the word roll over, because you remember when we had Coach Jackson on?
Yeah.
And we were talking about those games. Yeah, they really don't count.
Well,
so
but you know what?
No season.
I got a confession, and I mentioned it on my show, so I might as well mention it on yours as well. After further review with reaching out to the Southwestern Athletic Conference office and to the NCAA office, those games will count. So technically speaking,
that was a no-hitter and 3 wins.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Hey,
okay.
Hey.
But guess what? I did say Prairie View put up 2 valiant, historic. I mean, very good. If you break it down in simple terms, good games and very well could have won one, possibly two,
Yeah. But see,
but they didn't.
here's the Achilles heel with that being a truth now. That's the 5th consecutive losing season now for my baseball program.
Albeit
if
nothing, if the season would have been played to the end,
it counts.
You're confident that it would have been another losing season.
No, according to the way the record is standing, when you go back, even you can put an asterisk, no asterisk, but if it count, right? So we were 1-5 in conference play. So therefore, we were in the bottom of the West. I have to go back and look at the entire deal. If the tournament were to start with the records right now, we would be on the outside looking in. So that was the double whammy as far as I was concerned. So I'm going like, gee whiz.
Well, he will be back next year if they play, because the baseball coach, will he?
I can't answer that question. I'm assuming that he would be. Why wouldn't he be? Because I don't know. I really don't know.
Some would say leave that coach alone.
Some would say leave that coach alone, and others would say it's time to make your move right now. So tomato, half a dozen in one hand, 6.
I think the ones who say leave him alone are being facetious.
Could be. It could be, and depend on who and where they're coming from. If you're playing against them, you say leave them alone.
Well, how I feel personally, it would be the same as Jackson State football, basketball, no matter what sport it is. I want them at their best. And so when you beat someone who's a rival, you want them at the best. It doesn't matter if they have a winning or losing record because it's a rivalry, but the competitor in me, and if you're a true competitor, you want those teams, your rivals, to be at their peak. So there's no excuse if you win.
Right.
And no excuse if you lose as well.
Right. Now, and in all fairness, when it comes to my rival, when it comes to any game, I want to win every game, every series that I compete in. But there is an extra motivation when you're playing your rival. And that's why when you look at it, and we're talking baseball, right? We're talking baseball. For me, it's been rough. And people that know me, they know I love baseball. I play baseball. Right. And when you're talking about rivals, we're 2-19 against Texas Southern. Okay? And we're 0-7 in series. So I'm aching. What's that song? My achy breaky heart. I'm aching like a son of a gun. I'm serious, but
I could understand.
I still have the glimmer of hope, and the anticipation, and maybe I'm setting myself up for a letdown. But as long as I have breath in my body, I got to pull for my school, and I guess that's part of the frustration when you're missing the mark. When you're missing the mark.
Because you're a competitive person by nature, and you want to see them do well. And I even believe if Prairie View, the last 3 or 4 years in baseball, if they finish second, I think you still would be like, well, we right there. We've got to get that number one spot.
Yes, I mean that your goal is always to finish on top, whether it's in division or if it's in conference. And I feel better about my chances of improvement if I am at the number 2 spot, even at the number 3 spot. But when you're at 4 and you're barely in at 4, because it's a battle of a shoot me or stab me, but either way I'm going to die. And let's be honest, Pine Bluff and Prairie View have been the bottom dwellers of the Western Division of the baseball programs. Okay, when you transition over to the East, it's been A&M and Mississippi Valley. But even when you look where it stopped right now, there's a pause in the season right now, we were at the bottom of the bottoms. And that's not trashing, that's just fact reporting. A lot of people that don't understand the core of what I have to do. What I have to do as a broadcast journalist, I have to state the facts. And I would have to say I put in 90% fact, 10% of my opinion. Okay? And they would rather lean on my opinion than to listen to the fact. And the fact of the matter is we've been a struggling program for the last 5 seasons. That's a fact. That's not dogpiling on the rabbit. My opinion is I expect better. And then all of a sudden Prince is this bully. Prince is this instigator. Prince is messy. I mean, well, if I'm performing at a 20 to 30% ratio on anything and I have a supervisor, they're going to call me in. They're going to put me on a work program. And I'm going to have a work plan. I'm going to have to work out my soul salvation, if you allow me to say it that way. And they'll take what I just said right there and say, there go Prince talking about putting the coach on a program. No, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is the expectations that I have for my baseball program, for any program that's connected to Prairie View A&M University, I expect the best. I expect the best. And if I'm wrong for that, then I'm guilty as charged. I've been on accusations that I've been demanding that the coach be removed of his services. And I tell people, whoever listening now or listening when it's pre-recorded, that's a lie from the pits of hell. I've said I expect better. I open up a microphone 7 days a week. If I said I want the coach fired, I'm man enough and bold enough to say that the man should be fired. Am I expecting better? You're absolutely right, I am.
Yeah, and speaking of expecting better, UAPB, Charles Doc Gamble gets it official now.
Yes, sir.
The head football coach at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. And he has something to build on. UAPB improved last year. And again, if there's no season this year, well, you still have an opportunity. The cupboard is not bare, is what I'm saying. As he begins his head football coaching at University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, Charles Doc Gamble. And then Dr. Hill Ely gets a 1-year extension, and it runs from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. But if there's no season, we kind of just talked about that and answered that, and I'll say it again. Well, yeah, it'll definitely roll over, but he has some incentives, getting 8 wins, winning the Magic City Classic, et cetera, and then $185,000. Boy, if there was no pandemic going on and everything was on schedule to be played, you'd have to ask yourself, based off of last year, some improvement enough to warrant an extension. But again, do you want to get into it about a 1-year extension or 2? I can hear some people saying, wow, that a 1 year, that's just iffy, and for his recruiting and stuff, and then coming off an outstanding recruiting class, according to B.J. Jones, why not a extension beyond 1 year?
This is definitely pandemic-related contract. There's no other term for it, and if I'm Ely, yes, I'll gamble on myself like he did last year. He had this same type of deal going into the 2019 season, and he was able to weather the storm. He rallied the troops together, and I personally think if we wasn't dealing with this virus situation, he would have possibly gotten a 2-year deal. But this is administrators' way of playing it safe, because you got to remember, if you buy gold this year of football, can we afford as institutions to offer that same extension to the would-be seniors this year as we did for the spring sports. There is going to be a big money gap because there won't be revenues to cushion that blow on the second round for that. So all it is a smoke screen from outside looking in. From outside looking in.
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I know the pandemic has athletic departments nervous, and I understand that. But I sit back and I look at the body of his work up until this point, and I factor that into my decision if I'm putting on the AD hat, in which I'm not.
You're not gonna wear your AD hat today?
No, just my opinion.
You wear it for Alcorn, Prairie View, and Southern all the time.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna try not to wear the hat in about 10 minutes. But I'm also smart enough to know it is a tough job what they're doing.
Oh no,
and
doubt.
what they have to do, but back to Alabama State. I guess it's whatever their criteria is, and again, in the pandemic, it is what it is as far as that up to this point. I'm trying to pull it up, the article from the Montgomery Advertiser, to give you a little bit more information.
And while you're pulling that up, if Alabama State gets remotely relevant in football, by far they would be the most dominant and consistent athletic program throughout the Southwestern Athletic Conference because they've dominated spring sports. Every sport in spring sport, they've been in the upper echelon. Basketball, they've been hit or miss, but football has really been a miss. And to be honest with you, what Ely inherited and where he has worked them out, I personally think he was worthy of a 2-year extension. But once again, with the way this is structured, it is theoretically a 2-year extension. Because if I'm in any coaching position right now, I've got to start trying to look at recruits for the next year because this year is going to be a wash. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford the seniors that I have this year to even have that impact. And it's a sad situation to be in, but it's a reality that we must begin to face.
And I'm looking at the article, and basically their opinion is this is a prove it to me extension.
Well, they want to prove that 6-5 wasn't a fluke, because they were supposed to prove it to me. Okay, you got past this, prove it. Well,
a season ago they actually were 5-6. Not 6-5. They had some improvement, but in question is a 1-year renewal. And again, if this pandemic wasn't going on, it certainly is a prove it. Prove it to me. And that's why I was saying, take out the pandemic. If you're an Alabama State alum or fan, has this, and I understand what you're saying as far as if they could get some championships in football, then they're the most dominant athletic program because of the commissioner cups that they've won and the success they've had. Now, even basketball, as of late, has been kind of not up to their usual standards. But you have to ask yourself the question, has this Alabama State football program, in your eyes, have done enough to continue with Dr. Hill Ely?
And I would say yes, considering what he inherited from the Jenkins era. Okay, and yes, he was on staff there, but it's a big difference when you're on staff and when you're leading the staff. And there's no knock on Jenkins, but, you got to sort out and work out your own system. There are some things you keep. There are some things you discard. And he is just, what's this? This is going to be, year 3, 4, something like that? I don't know. But he is now getting the grips of his system, and you got to go in and sort that thing out, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then by the time you get to year 3, you got a sense of direction of where this thing is headed. And it's the same instance when we look at my school at Prairie View. Dooley's in the same shoes right now.
Well, let's look ahead. Let's say it's 2021 and it's rolled over. There was no season. Everything will roll over. He has academic bonuses. Of course, he wins 8 games. In my opinion, winning the Magic City Classic, he may not necessarily have to win a championship, but let's say if he comes behind Alcorn State in 2021, he gets a second place finish, then I think he gets an extension. And, he hits graduation success rate, grade point average, et cetera, et cetera. Then I think he's good. But the 1-year extension, I guess you've seen it before, but as I told Charles Edmond, I thought they would have given him a 2-year extension. He gets the bonuses for 8 wins, 1,000 each for additional win, 2,000 for winning the Labor Day Classic.
Labor Day Classic?
Winning the Labor Day Classic. That's what it reports.
Well, when you say
Turkey
Labor Day
Classic,
man, I'm only thinking one Labor Day Classic now.
Well, Magic City Classic. Well, they have their opening game. I guess they call it.
Okay.
Their Labor Day Classic. But it's interesting. It's interesting. If folks in the audience, if you're the AD, would you have offered more than a 1-year extension? Do you believe that up until this point he's done enough to deserve that? Let's see. Jack says, okay, here we go. Well, let me before I get to Jack, Derek. Oh boy, they're coming in so fast. Let me see if I can keep up here. Here we go. And then we got a guest coming up in a few minutes. He says, put that AD cap on. Get him, Dr. Prince. But then he also says, Bama State beat Grambling, lost 3 overtimes to Alabama A&M, and missed a last-second kick to PV. He was stone's throw away from a 6-1 swag record, but like Prince says, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So, Derek, you said you think he should have got more than a 1-year extension?
That's what it sounded like to me.
That's the question. Yeah, he didn't say it, but I guess he did say it. Yeah, I was surprised that he got a 1-year extension, not a 2. 2 versus 1. Somebody may say, hey, should have gotten 3.
Now, let's not get carried away.
Well, certain schools, but, they believe. But then, like, when you get original, you hired originally, you get a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I can only speak for certain schools, one in particular. You're not going to get a 5-year contract. And they have had people who have listened to me over the years argue that, no, that's not fair. You should get a 5-year contract. I say it's not happening in Baton Rouge.
Well, the only way that
you'll get 5 years, but you won't get it all up front.
Right. I was going to say the only way that happens, you get a 3-year deal, and then usually what happens, like in Texas when you deal with superintendents, you'll give a 1-year extension to roll over on the back end, so it starts a fresh 3. So that actually 3 turns into 4, and if they continue to be trending upward, you do another 1-year extension, which gives you that 5-year contract. In theory.
Mm-hmm.
So to sell your soul, for 5 years right out the bat, I don't think that's good management. You do 3 years. 3 years, by year 3, you would know what you have as a coach. You would know what you have as an AD, and you guys know which direction this thing is headed. And it's okay. Let's move on. Let's go on down the road.
Well, Derek says he deserved 2 years. Yeah. Now I'm not gonna read the other part. I should.
Go ahead, man.
You know, if you send me something, he said. Plus, I don't want Thornton gone.
Ha ha.
Defensive coordinator at Alcorn. He's an Alabama State alum. Huh? Yeah. Well, I guess it is kind of fun to speculate, but Ely. People say two years. He deserves it. I had another response, but I'll come back and read that. Now I have to look it up right quick, but we'll take a quick time out. Coming up next, first guest of today's show, Dr. Travian Scott, the Deputy Athletic Director and Chief Operating Officer at Southern University. He joins me next. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. I'll be right back.
As a dad, you'll probably spend years teaching your son how to hit a baseball, how to throw a tight spiral and hit a receiver, how to spring off a diving board and hit the water, how to hit a one-wood and a 9-iron, how to hit the bullseye, how to hit the strike zone, hit a jump shot, hit the open man, hit the hockey net, and maybe the most challenging of all, how to hit the books. But the question is this: how much time will you spend teaching him what not to hit? Teach your son early and often that all violence against women is wrong. For tips on what to say, visit endabuse.org. Brought to you by the Family Violence Prevention Fund, the Waite Institute for Violence Prevention, the Ad Council, and this station.
The birth of legends are storied in this conference. We must never forget our rich history. We now turn our gaze to the future. The new legends will emerge. New heroes to arise. The Southwestern Athletic Conference. Be our history.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Today's first guest is the Deputy Athletic Director and Chief Operating Officer at Southern University, Dr. Travian Scott. Joins me. Dr. Scott, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself? You being safe?
Being safe, doing well, making sure that we practice social distancing and all of the things that the federal government is asking us to do, chomping at the bit to get back on campus. But, of course, we know that safety is paramount for our students and our student athletes.
I would agree, and I definitely understand. And with this pandemic going on, Dr. Scott, I'm sure as an athletic department, and not only athletic department, but the university, you've probably had to come up with a pandemic plan or a model. Is that the case in the athletic department?
Of course. There's several models, actually, when you consider how vast an athletic department can be. Of course, there's the model for academics or what that looks like now that we turn to distance learning, and how many touches or how often now are we communicating with our student athletes, and what that looks like from an academic perspective. Of course, there's a well-being perspective, and we've been able now to bring on a counseling service to make sure that, we could really put the mental health of our student athletes, and I'll be frank with you, some of our staff as well, to ensure that, of course, the coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, can affect you mentally. So we want to make sure that they're of sound mind as well. There's some other things that we're doing budget-wise, doing some different forecasts to understand where we are, in the event that we have some things going on with some schedule changes and things of that nature. So we've got several plans, several models in several different areas. I will tell you that Zoom now has become my best friend. And so we have those Zoom meetings, and and things of that nature. So we've got several different models in several different areas. It's just like we're at the office without our students. But like I said earlier, we look forward to bringing our students back and having some normalcy back on our campus and in our department.
It's always Zoom now. And I was just reading this week that they're going to have a major update on Zoom as far as security issues, but it's a name that you're hearing a lot now. Last week, talked to Alabama A&M's director of athletics, and that was one of the first things he talked about as far as keeping meetings and having them via that method. So this time is unprecedented, this pandemic, and that leads me to this, Dr. Scott. It's called the invisible enemy, and spring sports and do-overs. Let me get your perspective on that. How do you feel personally about spring sports do-over?
Well, I think for one, anytime you've got a student athlete losing a season of competition for any circumstance that's beyond the realm and the scope of their control, you want to be able to ensure that obviously they get an opportunity to try to rectify that. And through my relationships with the NCAA, I've come to learn and understand even more and more. And they've certainly been under a great scope of criticism from name, image, and likeness to the cost of attendance to you name it, they've been under it. But one of the stalwarts of the NCAA and where they've been really consistent is to be able to do things in the best interest of the student-athlete experience, right? Because you only have one. We call it 4 years for the next 40 of your life. And that now has extended to 4 and sometimes 5, and even now in these unprecedented times, 6 years, if that is the case. And so I'm a supporter of it. I'm even more of a supporter now of them being able to waive the test scores and giving some of these student athletes who wouldn't have the opportunity otherwise to be able to compete at the Division I level faster or sooner, I should say. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to bring our students back. And when I say us, just not Southern, any institution who wants to bring their student athletes back for the spring. I think it'll play well to the student athletes who want to get an advanced degree or advanced education if they're given the opportunity to. And again, it contributes to so many more things on the back end when it comes to, being able to show yourself well with your student athletes and with their experience and some of the things that we measure as it relates to student athletes coming back, being a part of the program and giving back, whether that be through their time, whether that be through their finances. It plays well to that sentiment. And so I'm a supporter of it. I think it's a great idea. We're taking a look at all of those things. Now, of course, we've extended the invitation to all of our student athletes for our spring sports who want to come back. And I think that's the right thing to do. And I'll tell you, we've gotten a significant amount of student athletes who want to come out, who want to come back rather than finish what they started.
And that's a great thing. And of course, there is a financial perspective to that, correct?
It is. It is, but what the NCAA has done now is said, okay, I'll give you an example. Baseball has 11.7 scholarships, and they can award them to 27 student athletes. What they're saying is if you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seniors, you can give them up to from 0 percentile up until what they've received the prior year and have that not count toward those minimums. Now, what it becomes now for the institutions is more of a budget challenge. Not as much as a financial, not as much as a challenge as it relates to the scholarship minimums, because if the scholarships aren't effective, it becomes more of a budget challenge in the business office with some of these business managers and CFOs trying to ensure that the budget is balanced and that we're able to absorb the additional cost of those scholarship dollars. And again, like I said earlier, we've been able to forecast through some of our modeling what that looks like. And through those efforts, we've been able to extend that invitation for our student athletes to return if they choose to.
I'm visiting with Dr. Travian Scott, Deputy Athletic Director and Chief Operating Officer at Southern University. And Dr. Scott, looking over your bio on me, responsible for daily operations, Southern Athletic Program Sports Administrator for football, women's basketball, softball, men and women track and field. And your background, of course, as an athlete, basketball, you are kind of like the point guard of the athletic department. Is that a good analogy, or is that way off base?
I would say it's accurate. I would say one of the things about being a point guard is that you're an extension of the coach on the floor. And not only that, but you've got other individuals who certainly carry their load and make up the dynamic of the team. So I would say that that's accurate, but I would also say that we've got a great group of administrators who partner with us to lead the Southern University Department of Athletics. We would say that the AD would be the coach, and it's certainly fitting that the AD was a coach. And so we've got great leadership from the athletic director's office. We've got great leadership through our president and chancellor's office, and we've got great leadership through our board of supervisors office. So, I consider it an honor and a privilege to be the point guard, so to speak, and to lead a group of my peers. And it's so special then when you could, of course, be a part of such a precious time in a student athlete's life to helping them achieve their dreams and help them find what I like to call their aha moment when you see them kind of mature throughout their college careers. And so, again, I consider it an honor and a privilege to be here. And I tell you, athletic administration is one of those things that is so fulfilling. I mean, you have, of course, you have some of the same sports, but you have different student athletes with different situations and circumstances from all walks of life. And so, again, quite an honor, quite a privilege to be here and to represent Southern University and to represent the student athletes of our institution.
Yeah, we are a team, and that point guard is responsible for, helping the offense run smooth and making other players better on the court, if I can use that analogy. So we definitely understand that. Dr. Scott, we talked about spring sports do-overs. Most people are most concerned with football's fate, with this invisible enemy, this pandemic. It's pretty much, you have to have a model for that. But this upcoming football season, if there is to be a season, I'm sure adjustments will have to be made. What is the athletic department's response right now to the football's fate?
Well, I can tell you this, even from the standpoint of having football and having a discussion with football, it's a couple different ways that we can go about it. Of course, we'll follow the leadership of the SWAC office with the council of presidents and the sport administrative committee that's composed and comprised of the athletic directors and the senior women administrators of this conference. But I can tell you, just in having those conversations, being involved heavily in the day-to-day of those conversations, that it's going to be tricky. And by saying it's tricky, I'm just going to tell you, if you're sitting now with the social distancing models and the things that the federal government is putting out, it's going to be really difficult for you to be sitting next to somebody in a 22-inch seat and you're sitting arm to arm next to them and feeling comfortable with that, right? So right now, we're playing everything from ear to ear and just really trying to get some semblance of where we're going in terms of having a vaccine, and then being able to plan accordingly to make sure that of course, we can keep our fans and our student athletes safe during our game day experience, which is quite an experience. So right now, it's just taking a wait and see approach. Again, similar to the modeling that I spoke of earlier, we've got some best case, worst case. If we, for example, we don't play first couple of games, obviously there's some things tied in there with revenue and some things of that nature with Detroit and Florida A&M. If there's something that we may need to cut off, there's a model for that, right? There's some forecasting at how we're going to look on that side. If something happens and we're only playing a 10-game schedule or a 9-game schedule or an October only or October to November schedule, what that looks like. Obviously, from the standpoint of social distancing within the stadium, that's more of a challenge. But hopefully, we can get some solutions going with finding vaccines and having testing and being able to test our student athletes, being able to quarantine almost immediately and being able to get those results in a way that we can turn it around even faster, so not as to affect some of the other members of the team and the program. And so we're working on those now. Obviously, like I said earlier, we're taking the leadership of the SWAC office and Dr. McClellan and what they're doing up there. But I look forward to seeing it. There's a lot of unknowns. There's some things that we don't know, but we prepare for those by making sure that We have our plans in place and some of the items, but we won't, and I repeat, we will not, of course, ever do anything that would endanger our student athletes, that would endanger our fans, our supporters, and the like. And so we keep that in mind every step of the way. You know, I'm averaging about 4 to 6 Zoom meetings a day, and about half of those is just talking about student athlete safety and COVID-19 response, because, you know, we certainly don't want to be reactive. We want to do some things. Even now, you know, we're thinking about bringing in, obviously, more disinfectants. Of course, having smaller weight room groups, having smaller groups being able to go in the training room at one time, ensuring all of our student athletes have masks, being able to take their temperatures when they're walking in, if they have low-grade fevers and things of that nature. So we've been really proactive in trying to make sure that we can curtail the virus, but without a vaccine, it's going to be really difficult. So hopefully in the near future, we can get that and we can move forward with the daily operations of our program.
Yeah, I can understand that. And Dr. Scott, during these meetings, does a legal perspective even have been mentioned as far as from the legality? You've done all that. You've taken all the, I guess I'm saying this hypothetically, you've done all those things to do for prevention, but then something does happen. Is there a legal perspective that has been talked about in these meetings?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it has. I mean, the liabilities are high. Again, when you're talking about
word, liability,
and I believe you touched on it. You said you call it the invisible enemy. You know, I'm standing outside in my backyard right now talking to you, and I don't know if I'm breathing it in or not, right? And so there's certainly a liability that comes with that, and of course we've been able to have those conversations through our legal department, and really ensuring different ways to be able to protect ourselves in the event that we bring our student athletes back, and that does happen. So yeah, I certainly would say that there is. Again, that's within that scope for those preparations that we're making. And those are going to be the things that we're going to have additional discussions on, not just from an institutional level, not just from a department level, but from a national level.
Right. I understand that. Visiting with Dr. Travian Scott, Deputy Athletic Director, Chief Operating Officer for Southern University. Now, we're still in this mode of pandemic. And, of course, the next thing that you hear about a lot is because of this, funding issues. And if you don't have a football season, or if you have a limited season, it's unknown. It's definitely going to impact the athletic department from a financial standpoint and funding. I'm sure, of course, you have a model for that as well.
Absolutely. And again, there's a good, better, and best scenario. Again, what do it look like if we're not generating, of course, the guaranteed revenues that you would think that you would generate the first 2 to 4 weeks of the season? And not just in football. I tell you, we've had conversations in basketball as well. Men's basketball, women's basketball, what that looks like if we have a conference-only season. We've thought and created models all the way through next spring. So we're not focused on this thing, you know, just from the football lens and what that means to revenue generation, ticket sales, tailgating, concessions, and all of the additional revenue streams that we use throughout football season, but also what that looks like from a basketball perspective as well, and how they generate revenues via guaranteed contests, concessions, ticket sales, and things of that nature. I can tell you that you're able to offset a lot of those costs through travel. Of course, if you don't generate the revenues, but you don't have the cost of travel as well, so that helps a little bit. But I can tell you also that, you know, we would miss some revenues in that regard. We've made the preparation to be able to have those conversations to feel comfortable. As far as of right now, with me talking to you, we're not looking at cutting any sports. We're not looking at cutting any staff or things of that nature. So that's a great thing. And so hopefully now this thing can turn and can really, really, really start to slow down so that we can put some measures in place. I do not believe that we will be 100% scot-free from the standpoint of being able to start every Division I sport that we offer in its totality and be able to complete those seasons 100%. That's not my thought right now. AD Banks and I talk about 15 to 20 times a day, and I certainly don't want to speak for him, but I believe that those are his thoughts as well. But we look to make those adjustments and look to make sure that we can have the best student athlete experience for all 15 of our sports and 16 with cheer now. And so that's what our mission is, to be able to create that environment where our student athletes can have memories for a lifetime. And so if that means we've got to press pause on a season, or we have to postpone a season and pick it up later, or we have to start it a little later, that's what we'll do. But we won't put revenues in place of player safety, fan safety, or our staff safety. So that's our viewpoint. That's the stand that we're taking. And like I said earlier, hopefully this thing begins to change and really turn itself in another direction, and we can move forward to as close to some normalcy as possible.
Yeah, I believe and I say will get through this. There's going to be some adjustments that have to be made, and but eventually, that's what you're trying to do, get back to some normalcy, and I do believe eventually we will overcome this. I'm visiting with Dr. Travian Scott, Deputy Athletic Director and Chief Operating Officer for Southern University. Dr. Scott, always a hot topic, future scheduling, and more specifically football. With the conference now with a master, schedule as far as football conference games from a 10-year base period, has it made scheduling football games in the future, specifically non-conference games, that's a bit much easier?
Oh, no question. I make the football schedule, so I can tell you it's been a challenge, especially with the one rotating on, one rotating off. I mean, what does that look like? But yes, we've been able to do some things with the schedule that we haven't in the past. I think the challenge that the AD has given me is just to be able to find some interesting content, to be able to find some things where fans can be attracted to the opponent. We're doing those things now. I believe our schedule this year is probably as good a schedule as we've ever had. I want to create the model now that would enable us to have at least 5 home games every year. Obviously, from the standpoint of generating revenue, I know that there's varying opinions on playing guarantee games and doing things of that nature. My general philosophy, especially as a fundraising mechanism, I think game guarantees are sort of a lazy man's way of raising funds. So, we want to be able to have those games on our campus, create that environment for our fans. Now that doesn't mean we won't play guarantee games, but we'll play guarantee games using that tank of gas philosophy. So, if you see us play a guarantee, we may go as far west as Houston or Dallas, as far east as maybe in Atlanta, somewhere where we could bust it, be able to generate those dollars and be able to get back without spending an exorbitant amount. The Detroit thing was something that obviously we couldn't pass up, but I can tell you with our scheduling model, being able to go out as far as we have, we're in talks with a couple of institutions with great alumni bases and fan bases in the areas that we're going to travel in. And then if we're bringing them to us, they've got great alumni bases here. And so that makes for interesting contests. That's been our model. The SWAC has done a great job with creating their schedule as far out as they can get it, and being able really to communicate how the schedule is going to look from a year-to-year basis. And I'll tell you, being able to give us the opportunity to schedule in conference if there are games that we would otherwise play and be big revenue generators and be big in terms of generating interest on the fan level. For example, Jackson State, right? So if there's ever a year where Southern doesn't play Jackson or Jackson doesn't play Southern, we know now years in advance, right? And so we've got the option then if we want to be able to bring Jackson to us or go to Jackson, or for example, have Jackson at a neutral site. Now, in old years where we just didn't have the option, now we have the opportunity to pick up the phone and call somebody like a Jackson, and they have the opportunity to call us, and we'd be able now to have more control of our scheduling and our fan engagement and fan experience. So kudos to Dr. McClellan and his staff for grabbing the bull by the horns and being able to help us out in that regard. But I can tell you, we're taking full advantage of it with regard to football scheduling at this time.
Well, Dr. Scott, any opportunity you get to be able to play Jackson State, that would make me happy. It could be Tiddlywinks. It wouldn't matter. That's the game that gets the blood pumping.
That's right.
For me. So
that's right.
I'll throw that out up there. At the end of the top of the hour, I want to discuss one more thing with you, and that is Southern University. Everyone knows the history with the APR issues and the problems that they have, but those problems now have been alleviated. So APR success has really been outstanding for Southern University from where they were to where they are now. And you and your staff have done an outstanding job of getting Southern Athletics up to par. First of all, congratulations on that, but you had help and you spearheaded a lot of the APR benchmarks and success. Can you talk a few minutes about that?
Yeah, I can tell you that it's a team effort. Not so long ago, we were an athletic department marred with academic problems, where we had 3 of our 15 athletic programs eligible for postseason. We went from 3 to 10, 10 to 15, and now we've done 15, 15, and 15 3 consecutive years. We've been able to not just increase our APR, but our graduation success rate as well. We've been able to generate revenue through writing grants. So we've been able now to generate $2.2 million through different grants that have been offered. We've been able now to be able to offer a standalone academic center for student athletes at 6,500 square feet that houses over 100 computer terminals, 2 quiet study areas for distraction-free environment, a multimedia area, and a fueling station for our student athletes. And so what it's enabled us to do, obviously, is to take a long, hard look at ourselves, to be able to create policies and procedures, to be able to hold ourselves accountable, to be able to educate our coaches, to be able to educate our staff, to be able to educate our administration, right? And to really right the ship, so to speak. There was an opportunity, back then where we had student athletes who could have left us. They stayed and remained faithful. And they hadn't been able to benefit from the things that we have now, but they certainly contributed to what we have. And so, of course, we owe them a great debt of gratitude. We're rocking and rolling in terms of APR. Like I said, it's a team effort, and I'm just glad to be the leader of the team at this point, and glad to have, of course, the confidence of A.B. Banks, President Chancellor Belton, and our board. And so, again, it's one of those things, man. I sit here and smile about it because I know what's coming. I know what we've been through, and I see where we're going with our future. And, we've got a great group of coaches, Coach Odoms for one, Coach Jackson, Coach Funches, Coach White, Coach Jacobs, Coach Fall, Coach Garris, Coach Conyers, Coach Fontenot. I mean, we've got a great group, and they work hard. And the last thing you want, and I call it kitchen table, is for a coach to come and sit at your kitchen table and, tell you all of these great things about this school. And then for you to be able to sit at the table, or for the next coach to come in from another institution and say, well, Southern has this, or being able to give you news clippings saying, well, Southern isn't taking care of their student athletes, or Southern isn't doing this. Gone are those days, right? And so now we've been able now to turn the page toward creating those programs now that can compete and be able to give them the support that they need academically. We've hired additional advisors. We've got mentors, class checkers, you name it. We have it. But we have a platform now that now we're not even having those conversations about what we didn't have. We're moving into the future and creating more innovative spaces and learning opportunities for our student athletes to take it a step further. So we're not resting on our laurels. Of course, that's been one of the things that we talked about now for a couple of years with APR. Now APR has become the norm. And I can tell you, we don't plan on going back there. So, we're steadily coming up with new transformative ways and ideas to engage our student athletes from an academic perspective. We increased our programming outside of academics and outside of sport to make sure that we could engage our student athletes even more. We created a robust student athlete development program with 5 tiers. Of course, advocacy, professional development, leadership development, diversity and inclusion and recognition. And we push out all of our programming in one of those 5 veins to ensure that our student athletes can stay actively engaged and have something else, obviously, besides being a student and an athlete. So we call it total person programming. And so we've been able to do those things and create those models, and it's paid dividends for us, and it will continue to in the long run.
Dr. Scott, kind of a listener has a question for you. Are you able to answer, or would you answer a question?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. And we have a wide audience here from across the SWAC geographical blueprint. A listener says, ask would Dr. Scott entertain the head AD job at another institution?
I would tell you this. I've got goals and dreams. So obviously, my dream is to be an athletic director at a Division I institution. Mm-hmm. And the way I learned this thing was to always listen. I've got a small family. My children are very young. My oldest will be 8 in August, and my youngest turns 5 next week. So, short answer is yes. But I'm looking for the right opportunity with the right leadership, the right. I think alumni is so important. The right support and engagement from alumni, and then we can go from everything else. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to have an opportunity to be led by leaders, and to be able to partner with the coaches, the student athletes, the alums, and those different sectors to be able to bring academic and athletic success wherever that may be. So, short answer is yes. But again, like I said, it would. I'm looking for a specific institution if there is one.
Well, on that note, appreciate the time. It was the first time having you on the Carlos Brown Show, but it won't be the last time, Dr. Scott. A lot of good information and good interaction, and I appreciate the time. You and your family, continued blessings and safety, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And let's get together real soon again on the Carlos Brown Show.
Anytime, but I can tell you, Southern University Athletics is committed to the safety of everyone. Everybody be safe, maintain those social distancing requirements, and sooner we can get this thing to turn, the sooner we can get back to normalcy and tailgating and doing the things that we do. We call it that good old Southern spirit. So we'll see you soon, Jaguar fans, and stay safe. Go Jags.
All right. Thanks a lot. That was Dr. Travian Scott, Deputy Athletic Director, Chief Operating Officer for Southern University. Appreciate his time. We're going to take a quick time out. When I come back, we'll transition. Coach Pettaway. Oh, it's always a pleasure to talk with Coach Pettaway. He's coming up next. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
One voice. It can get the point across, but it only carries so far. Add a voice. It's richer, louder, but that has limits too. Add a third voice. It's even more powerful. Add another, and another, and many, many more. And we are stronger than ever. That's the power of a community coalition. They help community groups, faith groups, civic organizations, PTAs, employers, and many others in your community organize their resources and focus them where they're needed most, like fighting to keep kids away from drugs. Ask a group that you belong to if they should belong to a community coalition. It's easy to get involved. Visit helpyourcommunity.org and they'll tell you exactly how your group can help. That's helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more when we get together. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
I present to you 3 of the fiercest subjects ever assembled in the cage of doom. First, the brain-wrenching behemoth, Algebra 2, weighing in at a mind-boggling 800 pounds. Foreign languages! The multilingual international sensation capable of tossing you clear across the Atlantic. And finally, biology. More ferocious than formaldehyde, she'll dissect you 1 chromosome at a time. Who among you will step up to their challenge?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Me too.
I'm in.
Sign me up.
Take on the tough classes now. You need them to prepare for college. Find out which classes you need at knowhowtogo.org.
Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation for Education, and the Ad Council.
Our fans need to come out and support these schools. All of our SWAC fans, because attendance is down. So all of our fans have got to come out. We got to support our schools. We got to support our own. It's a message to all the alumnus. Support your schools.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. We visit with him every week, the Carlos Brown Show's basketball analyst, Coach Van Pettaway. Coach, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Carlos and Dr. Prince. I hope everybody has been safe, and we hope we're looking forward to another great weekend and towards another great week.
Well said. Well said. Remember, wash those hands. Social distancing. All of that.
Often. Yep.
Yeah. My cousin says she's practicing social isolation right now. I'm like, she's always been an extremist. But speaking of that, I want to talk about Coach Pettaway. Did you get a chance to see The Last Dance?
Yes, I did. I saw the first 2 episodes. I guess I'm a part of that 6 million that had an opportunity to see it. I thought it's a great piece. I think they're doing an outstanding job with it.
Yeah, there are so many nuggets in The Last Dance, the Bulls championship season, the last season that they kept the whole team together. Your initial thoughts on that, Coach Pettaway, a former and still a coach, but a basketball coach. What was your perspective on it after those 2 hours?
Well, I think it's enlightening for a lot of people. A lot of people don't know the ins and outs of what goes on in putting a team together and keeping a team together. And then I think what we're seeing in this series is a team that fought on in spite of having a lot of outside distractions. I mean, some that they created on their own, but a lot of it came from the higher ups. And certainly in college athletics, that can happen also, because if the president or the AD is not on the same page with the coaching staff, then you'll see a similar situation on the collegiate level. But to see the team rally and become one and still have that goal in mind to win that championship, I think that's a great takeaway from it. And then the other thing, you have to see, I think we are seeing how much work it takes to win a championship. And then you also see, I think the biggest thing people are seeing is how driven Michael Jordan was. How this guy competed, and it came from him being disappointed. Remember when he didn't make his high school team in the 10th grade? That lit the fire up under him that made him to be the greatest, what is arguably the greatest player of all time in basketball. So, being self-motivated, I think some kids will be able to see that.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because disappointment, and you remember his mother was like, well, you just work harder.
Right.
Over the summer, and, he was disappointed, and he worked his behind off. And also, during those 2 hours, he acknowledged the championships and his success. He acknowledged that without Pippen,
right,
he wouldn't have had.
Right, he couldn't do it by himself. Right.
Yeah. And then it shows his improvement as far as, you remember against the Celtics, where he scored all of those points.
Right, 50 in one game, 63 in another, yeah.
Right, but then it was after the team got better, and notice I say team, and Pippen coming, that they were able to get better. Because you remember in the NBA, they couldn't get past Detroit. And at one point, Detroit couldn't get past Boston. But it's a process you have to go through. And that is something that you were able to see in that documentary. And then also, as much, and I hear everybody debating who was the best collegiate basketball player, who was the best of all time. One of the things about Michael Jordan is that, Coach, he was on the All-NBA defensive team. And we think about his offensive game and improvement, working hard, but, man, he was a complete player.
Right. He was an all-around player. He just competed. He competes at everything. Look how much money he loses on the golf course, but because he competes. He competes. He's a competitor. He wants to win at everything. Everything that he goes out, that he puts himself in, he wants to be the best at it. And that's a good attitude to have. Some people got that same attitude, but they go about it the wrong way because they want to win at all costs, and they don't care who they step on going up the ladder. He didn't do that. There's a right way and a wrong way to be successful. Just like there's a right way and a wrong way to win in college athletics. Some people do it the right way, others cheat, and that's why you have to have the NC2A as the policeman of college athletics, because everybody's not going to do it the right way. But he has shown that with hard work and determination, you can get the job done. And then at the same time, he knew that he could not do it by himself. He had to have teammates. And he gives a lot of that credit to Scottie Pippen, who now a lot of people are seeing is one of the greatest players of all time also, because this guy played on both ends of the floor. He made all the NBA defensive team every year he was there. And at the same time, he's he's been voted one of the top 50 players of all time. So this guy did it on both ends of the floor, and both of them did. But it's certainly Michael's show, because he's the one that started. I mean, from his days from high school on up, you see the progression and you see the drive. This guy never gave up. He never gave up, and I think that's important for the young people who didn't know Michael Jordan to see that now.
Hard work, drive. His disappointment in high school being cut from the team. Then you look at Scottie Pippen, Central Arkansas. Now, they said they were NAIA at the time.
Right, correct.
But a student manager, and then he grew like several inches.
Yep.
Remember, like we were talking last week, Anthony Davis, and he's now playing in college, and then making it to the NBA. So hard work on his part as well, a complete player offensively and defensively, albeit they got to the Bulls from a different perspective as far as their collegiate play. But what they had in common was, once again, hard work.
Right. And then you look at it this way too also. Michael Jordan played for one of the Power 5 teams. Scottie didn't. Nobody knew about Central Arkansas, and like I say, at the time, it was a NAIA school. So
I didn't even know that.
Right, so that shows people, it should show some of these youngsters that it doesn't matter where you are; it's what you put into it to get out of it. See, Scottie did not allow him being at Central Arkansas to be a stumbling block. He used it as a step ladder. He knew he had to work harder than the next guy. And he continued to work hard, and he improved himself, and he got drafted. And then he ended up playing with one of the greatest players of all time. He helped that guy win his first championship.
Right.
So
Go ahead, Coach.
No. So I'm saying, so that's an example for the kids out there, especially those that are choosing between the Power 5 and the SWAC. It doesn't matter where you go to school. If you get the job done, they'll find you. It does not matter where you. It does not matter where you go to school. If you can get the job done, on the people on the next level will find you. That's why it does not matter if you go on power. Why go to the Power 5 and sit on the bench when you come to the SWAC and be a star, be all conference?
Yep.
That's the thing they need to look at.
And as always, you come and you're a student first. You're freshman in your athletic ability. And then after it's all said and done, 1, you should graduate. And then 2, as a player, you've developed. You're better from your freshman season to your senior season. And then you're in a position to better your life. And if you had an opportunity to go on to the next level, as you stated, then, you take advantage of the opportunity, the coaching that you've had under your collegiate coach.
Right. The opportunity that you're given. See, if you're sitting on the bench in a Power 5 school, it's going to be hard for you to make that transition. But if you come to where you can play and contribute, your opportunity is there. Take advantage of it.
We're visiting with Coach Van Pettaway, the Carlos Brown Show. I like saying this for basketball analyst. I don't have to keep saying about Alabama and them. They know who you are. Coach. They know who you are. And speaking of know who you are, Alcorn State, I wanted to get your thoughts on their hiring Coach Bussey from
I think
the Prairie
from Prairie. Right. It's a great hire for a number of reasons. You got a young man who knows about the SWAC. He's been in the SWAC. He's proven that he's championship material because he came from 2 consecutive championship teams. He recruited a lot of the players that have made all conference and that made Prairie View. He brought in that nucleus that made those 2 championships. So he's shown that he can do it on the recruiting end also. Then you bring a guy back to the South who is familiar with the South. I think he's from he went to Xavier, so Louisiana is in his blood. So he's got the ties in the South that you're going to need to be at a place like Alcorn. And then I think the biggest thing is you bringing in a guy who's hungry, a guy who wants to prove himself as a head coach. He's proven himself as an assistant coach. Now he wants to move over 1 seat and prove that he's ready for that. So I think it's a great hire. I think it's a great hire because he comes from a great program. Coach Smith is an awesome person first because I've had plenty of opportunities to sit and talk with this man and watch his practice. And then also, while I was watching those practices, I watched his same assistant work in practice. Mm-hmm. So I know he knows what he's doing. So I think it's a great hire for Alcorn.
So, Coach, we could look at perhaps seeing some attributes with Alcorn State. And listening to you and what you're just saying, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm betting you Alcorn defensively improves right off the bat next year.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yep.
And we often talk about offensively, scoring and putting points in the basket. But, again, as I've stated many times, when you were coaching, or if you ask me about the time you're coaching Alabama A&M, you use one word, defense. That's what will hop off to me. And I mean aggressive, full court defense, too. If you want to talk about it. Coach, I've often said I was tired just watching the game. So just think if you were on there, the way y'all would press.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean.
And I think he'll bring the same thing to Alcorn because that's their style. That's the way they play at Prairie View. And I don't see him changing that. What he'll do, he's going to add his own twist to it. But I think they're going to see an up-tempo team on the offensive end, and defensively, they're going to get after you. Alcorn, that's one of the things that they lacked this year was on the defensive end. I think you'll see that change, and I don't think you will find them relying on the three-point shot as much this upcoming season as they did this past season. So I think it's going to be a great transition for Coach down there at Alcorn. I think it'll be great.
Oh, boy. Can't wait to see Alcorn at Prairie View the first time and vice versa when Prairie View comes to Alcorn. You think maybe, just maybe, they could take one of those two meetings? Who knows?
Well, well, it's going to be interesting. You know, the teacher versus the pupil. You know, there'll be a lot going on in that game, and I think that staff was a pretty put together staff. So I think there'll be a lot of respect on both sides, and I just think they're going to compete for those 40 minutes. But I think they'll go back to being themselves after the game is over with. But that's going to be pretty interesting, and I look forward to seeing it. That's what makes it so exciting about SWAC basketball, the different matchups with the different schools and different coaches.
Coach, I got a question for you. Our listener, Donald, says, ask Coach, who had the best SWAC men's recruiting class in basketball 2020?
Well, that's going to be hard for me to answer because I don't know. I don't know everybody's recruits because of the virus. We're not getting the information that we normally would get. So you really don't know who signed who. And then you got to remember now, signing period just started last Wednesday. You know, the 15th, if I'm not mistaken, is when it started. So I don't have the report yet. And it's only because, you know, these are normal times.
Unprecedented times.
Right, right. But I will give it, I'll give it later on in the summer. I'll tell you who I think had the best recruiting class once we get all the information.
That's fair because I'm looking at, and I haven't had a chance to, I mentioned in the opening of the show, Southern added 2 women from the JUCO ranks, and then Coach Woods added his son, Coach Sean Wood, a 6-foot guard out of Lexington, Kentucky. They've got a transfer from Arizona State, 6'9", Andre Allen. Andre Toure, transfer from Howard, 6'8", power forward. And then, oh boy, Zemekalo Seli, Northeast Oklahoma A&M. He's 6'5", and then a graduate transfer from the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Harrison Henderson, a 6'10" center. So he's added 6'9", 6'8", 6'10", 6'5", and 6 foot. Coach Woods looks to be serious, Coach Pettaway.
Oh, yeah.
I think you must have been listening to Dr. Prince bragging on Prairie View a couple of interviews ago.
There you go, add me in. And I was, you know what, Coach, I was thinking I didn't even have to put you on him today. And he was doing real good till he started asking, do you think Alcorn going to be able to take one of them games? Now you want to bring this other part in. Look, Carlos, I love you, man, but stop being a bully.
Stop being a bully.
Stop being a bully, man. Now, I'm PV proud. You know I am. You Southern proud, and Coach is Alabama A&M, but we all SWAC proud. Prairie View still back-to-back champs. I love Bussy. We're going to have him on the show tomorrow night live, and I told him already, and I'm going to tell him again.
I'll make sure I'm going to tune into that one.
You best to. He can beat everybody but the Panthers twice a year, and he'll be all right.
There you go.
He'll be all right.
That sounds like a true PV, man.
Yes,
that sounds like
a pull for him, man, like a fat kid love candy until he reaches up against that other purple and gold.
There you go.
And
there
then
you
for
go.
40 minutes, I'm a boo and hiss. And as soon as the clock go, man, I'm gonna give him a big old hug and say, "I love you, little brother."
Yep. But yeah, that's the interesting thing. That sounds like an interesting group for that Coach Wood has brought in. Hopefully by next week I would have done some research on his recruiting class, to see what the kids did at their previous schools and that kind of thing. But when you compare, that's why it's always tough when they do the predictions, because a lot of times in the SWAC we don't have all the information from every school. So we don't know what they got coming in, and a lot of times you don't know who they lose. Also, now you know who the seniors are, but now did anybody lose anybody for a disciplinary reason or for academic reason? See, you don't know that because coaches keep that close to the vest. They don't want that information out there until it's absolutely necessary, and that's when you had to put the roster out. And that's not done until school is in. So that's why a lot of times when they did the preseason predictions, you didn't have all the information, and that's why sometimes you didn't get it right.
Right, but and I'm sure coaches, they're going to be concentrating on the X's and O's, and we've always said over the years, predictions and stuff, that's for the fans and the alums,
right.
To kind of pump the season up. But I don't think coaches are really, thinking about that as much. But now as an analyst, you get the opportunity to kind of give us that perspective on some of these recruits. Because see, I don't know who started. Now somebody said I'm being a bully, but now I got a listener saying, well, Grambling has this, and it's still so much information out there. And I do know Grambling did recruit. They had a good list, and then also a listener, Jack. I'm gonna say his full name because he really sends me a lot of information. Jack Harrell. The NCAA Division I Council also recommended that formal changes to transfer legislation be postponed to January 2021. However, transfer waiver guidelines could still be voted on and changed next month. Thanks for sitting
right, May 20th,
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm watching ESPN, and I'm looking at the information scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Boy, you see a lot of movement, a lot of Power Five basketball programs have added recruits and lost a lot of recruits. Transferring out is what I mean.
Right. Yeah. See, that transfer portal is hurting schools, man.
Yeah, and I thought about what you said last week. So changes are in store. But
and then see, like Alabama State, they don't have a coach yet, and so you're not sure about their recruiting process. Like I said, some of the information you're not getting because the schools are out, and the sports information directors aren't on campus, and you're just not getting the goods yet. And in some cases, people just haven't signed everybody yet.
Yeah, these times are unprecedented.
Mm-hmm.
So. The summer's good. You'll always have something to talk about.
Oh yes.
And we'll continue signing. But if you can kind of project somewhat, Prairie View's going to be tough, and they predict the order of a finish. I look for Prairie View to be picked to win it again, although we don't know the internal workings of who they've lost so far, who they have coming back. And it's going to be interesting, the other programs. How will they improve? Southern can argue that they were the hottest thing going.
Yep.
And the pandemic stopped them, and for a chance to prove that in the tournament. So they brought in people. You hear that, Coach Penaway? All these moans are growing.
Yeah. It seems like all the air is coming out this Southern conversation.
Wow, my goodness. That mic's not turned up. We're hearing a lot of air coming out and moaning and groaning.
That's just a figment of your imagination. Y'all can't hear
that. Yeah, right. That's my imagination. Okay. Unbelievable. But to my point, it's going to be interesting to see how the predictions and how the next basketball season, boy, it's going to be very competitive. In other words, what I'm saying.
And then when you got a top recruiter like Coach Boosie going down to Alcorn, what the kids he's been recruiting now for Prairie View, how many of them are going to say, "Hey, Coach, I'm following you"? So see, that's something else you have to look at, because those kids haven't signed yet, and some of them they were signing with Prairie View because he recruited them. So you don't know that. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying
Yeah, please clarify that.
That's a possibility, and I have seen that before.
No, you won't hear any air on that because that's a reality. That's a reality. People, look. People give to people. They don't give to organizations.
Correct.
People join organizations because of the person that led them and invited them about that. That's just the nature of the beast. So you won't hear no huffing and puffing on that. I'm just going on this figment of your imagination that Southern was going to be Prairie View in the tournament. I'm going to fade out and let y'all finish, but back to back.
Now wait a minute, don't fade out just yet. That was a distinct possibility. It would have been an interesting matchup. It would have been interesting matchup very well.
I really would have loved to have seen that. I promise you, I would have loved to have seen it.
Oh, no doubt. But I'm going to say this, and I will fade out. I was born at 8:57 p.m., not a.m.
and finally, Coach, after how you follow that one? After the JUCO. Yeah, the junior college ranks. Southern picked up two young ladies, Ty Metcalf from East Mississippi Community College, and then Jordan Atkins. She's 6'1" from Wabash Valley Community College. So Southern on the women's side, they've had a couple transfers, but they've decided to go to the JUCO route. In your career, did you go to the JUCO route? You went
when we could. Yes, no, not a lot because unfortunately for us at Alabama A&M, our system did not allow for too many JUCO transfers because we did not accept D's off of that transcript, and if a JUCO kid had D's on it, then that meant they were going to come up short on the academic side. So you did not see a lot of JUCO transfers in any sport at A&M because of our academic requirements. But that is a quick fix. I see what Southern's doing. They want that experience. They want people that's been through the fire, and that's why they're going JUCO route. Now, when you get Charles on, don't let Charles off without giving you his top 5 for that he's seen in the SWAC. Basketball players.
Yeah, yes, sir. That's coming up next. Good. And I'll end with this, and I can safely say I didn't have anything to do with this, but Jack, a loyal listener and a basketball guru, says, remember, Southern men have a 1-game winning streak over Prairie View A&M. Now,
bring it out.
Y'all just won't quit, man.
Bring it out.
Let it go, baby. Let it go. It's over with. You can't get it back no more. Do I need to start singing The Temptations? Well, it was just my imagination running away with me. It's over. Back to back.
Only looking forward to next year. Jack, thanks for that comment. And on that note, it's going to be on next year or whenever they start playing basketball. I may have to make a visit to the beautiful campus of Prairie View. Well, I think you'll come to Baton Rouge first.
You would not have to get a hotel. You could stay at my abode, sir. And I would feed you breakfast, give you dinner, lunch, and everything. Treat you just like family.
Head back with the L, huh?
Head back with the L, baby, on the forehead and on the backside. We're going to beat that head from the rooter to the tutor.
Well, Coach Pettaway, we appreciate the time as usual. Now, do I need to for next week let's talk about your best defense when you were coaching?
All right,
that
we'll
you
talk
like
about
to employ.
Okay, that's fine. Well, I want you guys to be safe. Everybody be blessed, and we look forward to next week.
Stay safe.
All right.
All right. We'll take a quick time out. Oh boy. You know what? Got a comment. Dr. Scott. Yes, we had a question that asked him, would he consider another institution? I'll just put it this way. A listener has said is impressed. And there's always the opportunity to move on. And when they move on, you give your blessings. And a good person, a good professional, sometimes it's hard to keep them. And you usually will feel real good that, hey, if I'm a coach, someone on my staff has moved on, but that means I had a good person, a good professional on my staff. So all that to say this, it was an honor having Dr. Scott on. It was a pleasure. And I look forward to having him on again real soon. And there are people that are highly impressed with him. And I'll leave it at that. On that note, we'll take a quick time out and we'll give the remaining 20 minutes minus a minute to Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show. I'll be right back.
Be the one with courage to fight child abuse.
All Texans must find the courage to fight child abuse.
Learn the signs and symptoms and report suspected abuse to appropriate authorities.
Learn and know these warning signs.
A child who undergoes changes in behavior, appetite, or routine. Watch for unexplained injuries, a change in academic performance, or loss of interest by a child in regular activities.
Trust your instincts. If you suspect something, do something.
If you believe a child is in an abusive situation, please call the Texas Abuse Hotline at 1-800-252-5400.
Be the one with courage. To find your local Children's Advocacy Center, visit onewithcourage.org.
On behalf of children, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Drivers and bicyclists both have the right to be on the road and travel safely. And when we're on the road together, safety is a shared responsibility. State law requires drivers to maintain at least 3 feet of clearance when passing bicyclists. And bicyclists should always ride with the direction of traffic and follow all traffic signals. It's safer. It's courteous. It's the law. A message from the Regional Planning Commission Pedestrian and Bicycle Program.
The birth of legends are storied in this conference. We must never forget our rich history. We now turn our gaze to the future. The new legends will emerge. New heroes to arise. The Southwestern Athletic Conference. Be our history.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. I'm going to be joined now by Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Charles, good morning to you. We missed you last week, but that was my fault.
Well, good morning. How are things going?
Doing well. How about you?
Doing well. Doing busy, kind of busy at Alcorn and hiring a new basketball coach, and a lot of discussion about that, and just trying to get through another week. A women's coach will be hired here shortly, so a lot, and as well as quarterbacks coach. So a lot going on the reservation these days.
Yeah, well, we've had a good discussion on Coach Bussey, the new head men's basketball coach at Alcorn State. Quinn Gray, remember him well at FAMU. Some shootouts. Good offensive football mind. Also UAPB, Charles Doc Gamble, now officially a head football coach at University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. And then Dr. Donald Hill Ely, a 1-year contract extension. So a lot trending in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Charles, I know if you had the AD hat on, it wouldn't even be a discussion of a 1-year extension. You would have given him deservedly more than 1 year?
I would have. I would have given him a 2-year deal with a school third option.
Mm-hmm.
I would have done that. Looking at the terms of the contract, I think it's a pretty good package. I think clearly, and if you talk to, and I've said this before, if you talk to Alabama State fans, if you talk to A&M fans, it's all about one thing. It's all about the Magic City Classic. And I think clearly, in my opinion, if Bama State had won the Magic City, then I think Coach Ely might have gotten a longer deal, because then you feel good about where the program is, beating your number one rival and all of that. But because he didn't, I think it's like, okay, we feel good about you, but you got to do some more stuff. So you tack on a bunch of incentives to that contract, and that's where it is. I mean, I do think Dr. Ely, he's got the right temperament for it. It's just a matter of finding the players, to fit what he's trying to do and just win some big games. I mean, Bama State, they beat Grambling last year. And I thought that was could have been a springboard for them. But then against Alcorn, they lose their quarterback, and they played like 4 quarterbacks last year. Offensively, it was a struggle, I think, to put the defense in some bad positions. So I do think Dr. Ely brought a sense of calm to the program. He's well represented. He dresses well. He speaks well, got his PhD and all that, even though that might not matter on the football field. I think it was enough to give him, what he got. But if it were me, I'd give him a couple of other cracks at it. If you can't get it done, compete for the East, then you got to think about something else. But I'm comfortable with the 1-year deal with a lot of incentives thrown in there.
Let's put the scenario out there. Okay, 2020, 2021. I'll say it that way, because I think 2020 is just in jeopardy. Let's say he gets second in the East. He loses the Magic City Classic. He beats Tuskegee. He gets a extension. Is that good enough, and how long?
If he finishes second, beats Tuskegee, wins the Magic City.
No, he loses the Magic City.
Oh, he loses the Magic City.
I got to throw a little ring. Well, I mean, I understand you're saying the Magic City Classic, but that's like somebody asking me about the Bayou Classic, Southern defeating Grambling. I think somebody asked me that, but they lose to Alcorn or some mixture.
It would really, if it was me, I would go a step further with it. I would pull the plug on it if he does those things. I would really have to convince my board to stick with him, even though we know what the mindset is. As an AD, you have to be a salesman as well. You have to really pitch your president. There have to be some other good things in there to say, you know what, I'm going to give him another year. But if he's in contention, and he's pushing Alcorn for the East, beating those other games, beating Jackson State, and just is right there in the mix, loses the Magic City as an AD, and I know Miss Williams will have to do a heck of a sales job to sell the president and the board. There's a Bama State board there. If it were me, I would give him another chance, but he's going to have to check all the boxes the following year, in order for us to move forward after that.
Interesting. He wins the Magic City Classic, finishes 4th, wins their opening game, and then lose to Tuskegee. But some would say, oh, yeah, most definitely get an extension because he beat Alabama A&M. He won the Magic City Classic. Interesting.
If he finishes 4th in that scenario, it would be hard. That would be a hard sell. Because you figure that you've got to beat Jackson, you push Alcorn, you win your big rival game, but you finish 4th. That's a tough one to sell. There have to be a lot of other good things there. You figure if you lose a couple of quarterbacks like they did, they were down to the 4th string quarter. I mean, there has to be a lot of extreme circumstances to sell another year after that. But when you give a coach a 1-year deal, that's tough. I mean, you're throwing, as a coach, you're putting all your chips in the middle of the table. I mean, as an administration, you're not, because it's either this or you move on to the next coach. But when you give a 4-year deal with a ton of money in there, like, I know you don't like 4-year deals, but schools are doing that. They're putting all their chips in the middle of the table. So with a 1-year deal, the head coach is putting all his chips in and saying, hey, it's either feast or famine.
Well, speaking of years, and I know you say I'm a hardliner as far as a director. I would be.
You are. You are.
But I think I'm fair. But speaking of that and contracts, then Landon Bussey, if you're the director of athletics, if I can put it that way, he comes from a good program. He's a good assistant coach. Everyone is saying it's a great hire. What kind of contract you think he's gotten as far as the length and from a financial standpoint?
I think, and I don't know, but if I were to guess, I would say it's a 4-year deal. The most any coach in this state can get is a 4-year deal, and I do think he has that. This is a coach that knows what a championship looks like in this conference. He smelled it, he's tasted, he's felt it, because he was a part of it at Prairie View back to back, as a matter of fact. And I spoke with him the other day, and just from an X's and O's standpoint, what I've seen of him on the basketball court, I was pretty fortunate twice, both at home and at Prairie View, to get to the arena early enough where Prairie View was doing a shoot-around. And Coach Smith would have his interjection, and then when it came to the scout, meaning the opponent that you're playing, that's when Coach Bussey would take over. And when I tell you, he commanded their attention, he commanded their respect, you can hear pen drop. Very detail-oriented, very focused, very driven, and he's going to bring that. He's going to bring that to Alcorn. He's a defensive-minded coach first, and he's going to get the players in there. It's just a matter of getting here in the state of Mississippi. And he talked about it when I interviewed him, how there's a lot of good talent here. It's just a matter of tapping into that talent. And he recruited quite a few good players over there at Prairie View. If he can do the same thing here, then there's no doubt the Braves will be competitive. Young coach, hungry, and I think that's kind of what everybody's looking for. And I'm really excited about it because I got a chance to see him up close and personal. A lot of folks may not know a lot about him, but I know what I saw with my own 4 eyes when he was actually at work coaching and scouting and preparing. So I think it's a very good hire. Of course, our president, Dr. Felicia Nave, worked at Prairie View several years back, so there may have been a connection there. I don't know, but you can kind of connect the dots a little bit there. So I think it was a good hire, a good young coach, and we'll see where it takes us. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I guess I need a projection at Alcorn to the institutions that will offer up front, like when they're hiring a new coach, and I guess the details will be released. I'll add them to the list that they're going to offer 4 years up front. And it's interesting. I get people to agree and disagree with me, and you know how my feelings are on that. I think you can get 5 years, you just won't get them up front, and you prove yourself. You may get 3 years up front, you may get 2, and then add it on the back end. Well, with incentives. So, but just basically what I'm hearing. What listeners who are listening have said, and I've got a couple of messages saying that it was a great hire. Everybody seems to be in agreement, and with Coach Bussey as far as being the men's basketball coach. And I'll say this, Charles, because Alcorn has had success in their basketball program. We know from the football program has been very successful. You really want to everyone's goal is to be an overall good athletic program, and that means every team doing well at some point. And I think this is a way in going for Alcorn State of doing that.
One of the things that he impressed me about when I talked to him, one of the big conversations he wants to have is that, to your point, he wants to talk with Coach McNair. He's looking forward to speaking with him, trying to get a template for success. I mean, and he did mention the success of the football program and what they've done over the last few years. So he's aware of that. So he wants to rub shoulders with Coach McNair, bounce ideas off of him. And hey, coaches learn from each other. I'm sure down in pretty much every school, every coach is talking with their counterparts in that school, especially when they've had success. I'm sure the men's basketball coach at Grambling has talked to Coach Fobbs, because he's had success. So this is kind of the norm, and I'm glad he said that because coming in and trying to improve Alcorn men's basketball, I think he'll get the lay of the land. He'll talk to the alumni, and he says he's looking forward to shaking hands and kissing babies and getting those tough questions in terms of, what is your plan? What is your vision? He says he's looking forward to talking with folks and asking and answering questions from people to kind of get the lay of the land. So, you like to hear that as well. I'm sure as he talks with folks, he'll lay out a blueprint. Right now he's trying to deal with hiring his staff. So it's and this is tough with this social distancing and folks not being able to travel and get on campus and all of that, because all that's kind of curtailed at this time. But I think once he gets here, he'll hit the ground running.
Visiting with Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Got about 4 minutes left, and Charles, still conversation going on about will there be sports this fall, collegiate? Will there be football? I posted an article on my Facebook page. Arizona president says fall football increasingly unlikely. More answers needed. Quickly, this pandemic, coronavirus, you hadn't seen anything like this in a long time. And of course, the financial, economic impact. Charles, I'm increasingly thinking there won't be a 2020 college football season. And if you move it to the spring, you hear that, then you're going to come back and play again in the fall 2021. Could be a new round of this coronavirus having an uptick in the fall again. What are you thinking? You believe somehow they're still going to be able to play football, collegiate football this year?
If I were to guess, I would say it's probably going to be in January. If I were just to guess right now, it's just a guess on my part. It's hard for me to see with this going around with the curve in some of these places. We're still not at the bottom of the curve. I think you look at what's happening in New York and LA, they're saying no big gatherings, no sporting events until 21. I think the NCAA is adamant about the fact that coaches don't want to play without students in the stands. So you scratch that off, then you're looking at, I don't think there's not going to be no football at all, because that would be catastrophic. So there's going to be football. It may not be when we think it's going to be. I'm kind of hearing it's going to be January to April, which will interfere with basketball and other stuff. So we'll see.
Then you're going to come back in August and play September, another season, 2021.
Yeah. I think that'll get worked out.
Yeah. Well, I'll end on this. I always remember, and I'm working on having a legal expert, and I had Dr. Scott on today, Deputy Athletic Director of Southern University, and in their meeting, they're already discussing this from a legal standpoint. I'm telling you, Charles, well, before I close this up, if you're a parent, in good conscience, could you allow your son or daughter to participate in athletics at this time? That, and then a legal perspective, it just takes one person and assumption of risk. I know they have those on jobs, but somebody's going to get sued if the tragic thing, in the worst case scenario, it happens. Someone gets sick and dies. In the collegiate sport. Is that a risk that you want to take? Well, Charles, on that note, we're out of time. Quickly, what do you want to say?
Oh, no, I was getting ready to say, I'll talk to you next week. It looks like a lot going on here where I am.
Okay, I understand. And we appreciate it. We'll talk next week.
Okay, appreciate it.
All righty. Well, that's it for today's Carlos Brown Show. I want to thank Dr. Travian Scott, Coach Van Pettaway, Charles Edmond, and Dr. Michael Prince for producing. As always, remember, you can tune in every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to 12 noon right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show. Until that time, as always, stay safe, peace, and God bless.